Medfield TV. Community shows.
All right, everybody, can I have your attention? I want to welcome you here for our, do you know that yesterday was National Ice Cream Day? So we're celebrating it today, but we have a special guest with us today. Our new Fire Chief, William Carrico, is here, and he's going to give a little talk about his department and maybe the ALS or whatever is on his mind to get to know all of you folks who he's here for. So welcome.
How you guys doing?
Great.
Excellent. A little more than I thought when I was coming up here. I got invited. Next time I'm going to check the agenda a little better. They just told me to come up and talk to you guys, maybe work the tables, but I wasn't kind of prepared for a speech, but I'll dig into my political background and see what I can come up with. For those of you who don't know me, Bill Carrico. I was the Sandwich Fire Chief for about 4 years. Prior to that, I was in Halifax for 5 years. Halifax and Medfield are very similar. We had a large call department, 8 full-time staff, and we ran a paramedic ambulance. We actually had 2 paramedic ambulances. Before that, I was in Duxbury for 10 years, went from firefighter to deputy chief, and then if you go through the process, here I am. I'm very excited to be here. I think there's a lot of opportunity. I think it's a great thing being able to bring ALS to Medfield. Where are we in the process? Right now, it is rather extensive to go through the hiring. I'm looking to bring 1 replacement on duty to bring us up to 8 firefighters, and now I have to hire 4 additional paramedics to get us to the position where we can operate an ALS ambulance service. I've started advertising, if you might have seen in the local paper. I advertised for firefighter paramedics. Didn't put a number on it because I want to see who I get, and I'll probably leave that ad up for a while. Right now we have 9 applicants. I have some interviews tonight, have some interviews on Wednesday night, and we'll put together a list. I'm trying to get that system in operation as fast as possible, but we have to go through the process. We have to interview, we have to vet the candidates. They have to have physicals, physical agility tests. We have to get them clothing, equipment, so it is a little bit of a process. So you'll probably see the first 2 members of the ALS group by the middle to end of August at the earliest. It's just going to take a little bit. But once we're up and running, my goal is to have 2 ALS ambulances. Right now we have 1 ambulance that's completely in service, and we have a backup ambulance that wasn't inspected. I've already started the process of getting that second ambulance inspected. And what happened is if we had a medical here in Medfield, the first ambulance would go out the door, but that other ambulance would be sitting there and we wouldn't call our people back. We'd go to mutual aid to come into town. And one of the things that I want to do is I want to make sure that you are handled by Medfield firefighters. So we're going to get that second ambulance inspected. We're going to start utilizing the second ambulance. Now, there isn't a lot of second medicals, but we do want to make sure that we have the ability to put 2 trucks on the road if we're called. And I think that's rather important. This is the first place I've worked that we didn't have 2 ambulance. So it's just one of my goals to get that one up and running as soon as possible. It's a little more involved than what you might think. You think you just go and get the ambulance inspected and away you go, but you have to have it inspected by OEMS. OEMS has a rather different schedule than we have as any state of Mass government agency, so you go and apply and you're at the whim of when they can show up. And then it's a matter of getting a procedure in place that everybody understands at the fire department. So it'll happen, and I think it's a good thing once we get both trucks up and running. Here is a rather unique, we're not doing as many calls as I'm used to, like back when I was in Halifax. We had 7,000 residents, here we have 12,000, and it's a little different demographic. I think everybody who comes to Medfield comes because of the school system. And I think we have a large demographic of younger folks, but it's people like yourselves that sometimes use the system a little more, and we have to make sure that we can hit your needs and make sure that we take care of you properly. So I'm open to questions if you have them.
I just have one thought, which I've heard people say sometimes that they're having a symptom, and I don't want to call the fire department because I want to bother them. So I know that the EMTs have talked before, and maybe you could just reinforce the fact that it's really okay to call if they're having a problem. I mean, that's...
Yeah, just because we come to your house doesn't mean you're going to get billed, and it doesn't mean we're going to kidnap you and drag you off to the hospital. If you feel like there's something wrong and you want us just to come out and take a look, so you feel like your blood pressure's too high, you call the 911 and we'll come out and we'll take a look at you. And if we think you need to go to the hospital, then we'll say, hey, look, you know what, I understand you want to stay home, but everything that we see indicates you need to go and get checked. But we're not going to kidnap you. Number one, there's rules that prevent that from happening, and we can get in a lot of trouble, but if you feel at any reason, we are a service that you pay for through your taxes. So if you need us to come out and check or take a look at something, by all means, you call us.
Yes, I would like to know if it's only Norwood Hospital that you bring your patients to.
No, now, if we feel that you're a critical patient, we are, by protocol, we have to take you to the closest hospital, which is Norwood. But we do transport to a total of 5 hospitals in the area. So if you want to go to Needham or Natick, by all means, it's whatever.
How about Faulkner?
Faulkner? Where's Faulkner? Gotta remember, I'm the new guy. That one might be a little far. I'd have to talk to my guys to see if that's on the list of hospitals that we go to. But if you're not a critical patient, I would have to take a look and see what the travel time is, and sometimes, you might have a child that's a critical, and it might be faster to get that child to Children's based on the condition that they have, rather than to take them to Norwood. So it's usually a situation basis, and like I said, I'd have to talk to my guys. I know that the 5 hospitals that we go to, but I didn't recall Faulkner as being one of them. Yeah. You gotta remember, it's the whole goal of our system is to try to get the guys back in service as fast as possible. And one of the things that happens is when we bring you to the emergency room, we're going to give a report to the nurse, and then we're going to, put you into the room that you're going to be taken care of, and then we try to get back in service. So the further that we go is the longer we get the truck back in service. And I think right now these guys do a great job in the turnaround time that they have. Because usually by the time we get to Norwood Hospital, they're in there for 15 to 10 minutes, and then they're out and they're back in town relatively quick. And that's a very good thing, because we want to have these guys in service.
Chief, you pointed out that you would take us to the closest hospital.
Yep.
And you're saying that's Norwood.
Right now, if you are a critical patient, like having severe difficulty breathing, chest pain, say if you were in cardiac arrest, we have to go to the closest hospital.
Closest hospital from this point here is Natick. It's 7 miles away, and I dispute the distance from here to Norwood and the travel time. I've been in that situation.
You also have to look at where are we in town too, because if you're on the extreme northern end of town, you're probably closest to Natick. If you're on the extreme southern end of town, then you're closer to Norwood.
Well, that's the point. I live on this end of town. And my wife and I have decided that we will not go to Norwood, whether it's life or death. I'm not going to Norwood. I've been there, and I've been.
Well, I would make sure that is relayed to my people, and we will make sure we fulfill your wishes.
Thank you.
I have the same question about the distance of the hospital you could go to with my mother-in-law, and they always, they'll take you right to, and I wanted to go to the Glover. And, I can't remember now the situation, whether they insisted on going to Norwood, but they always hit Norwood, they want Norwood. And I'm not Norwood, I mean, I have nothing against Norwood, but I go to Needham for my doctors, and, the Needham hospital is, I prefer.
Yep.
Can you say as you're dying, Needham, please?
I think the travel time from the center of town is probably a 2-mile difference.
Needham, Norwood, I mean, God, we're right in the city, you know Needham?
I know where Needham is. I've never been to the hospital.
My best friend lives in Halifax, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
Where?
Oh, Clydesdale Road,
Okay.
right there, yep.
Chief, you would take into consideration if the hospital were diverting, or if there were, say Norwood was very, very busy.
Yep.
It's the closest, then you go to the next closest.
Correct, that's right. You don't see hospitals on diversion too many times. Back when I first started in the fire service, you would get hospitals going condition red, they just couldn't take any more patients, the emergency room was full, they didn't have any place to put the patients in the emergency room, so now I haven't seen a hospital on diversion in 12, 14 years. What else do you have for me?
Any other questions?
Yeah,
I was an EMT here for 20-some years, and we started teaching CPR. Bill Mann, the retired police chief, and I started teaching CPR because we had one call at the Legion Hall at a wedding, and nobody went to go to the phone to call until over 5 minutes had passed. And Bill and I decided it was never going to happen in Medfield again, that there would be that kind of delay. So we fought for years. Do you still actively teach CPR?
I have one member that's currently trained to teach CPR.
Which one?
I have 8 full-time employees, and I know of one that teaches, you have to have an instructor certificate to teach CPR.
I know that.
Yeah, and I have one member that I know of that has it.
Well, Bill Mann and I taught free. We charged only for costs and materials, and we always thought we'd be rich if we never charged money on the thing after 30 years. Okay, so you.
Yeah.
I have two questions. One, what was it about Medfield that attracted you to come to this town? And secondly, what do you view as your biggest challenge being the new chief of Medfield?
Well, attracting me to the town, it was, it's very similar to what I had in Halifax, and I really missed Halifax once I got to Sandwich. And there's some personal reasons for coming here also. My wife's family is from Stoughton, and when we moved to Sandwich, her mom and dad got pretty sick, so she was driving up once a week to take care of her mom and dad. So if you know where Sandwich is, it's about 65 miles south of here, and it was quite a ride for her. And then when this opportunity came up, I kind of jumped on it. I thought that this is a very similar demographic, very similar size in the town and the structure of the fire department that I was very comfortable in. It gave me the opportunity to get her closer to her family so she can take care of her family, her mom and dad. I thought those were the two biggest things. And then there was that opportunity to create the ALS system, which I think is a big thing for me. It's extremely important. And when I looked at the town, when they had advertised, I was kind of in shock that we didn't have an ALS system already in place here. I really was. I would have thought that given the size of the community, the makeup, that it would have been something that had been in place here for a long time. And what was the second part? The challenges, yeah, it's being the guy from the Cape, being the guy from the South Shore, and then coming up to Metro West and having people ask me where the Faulkner Hospital is. That can be a little challenging. And it's part of it. I think I'm on month 3, and you look at learning the town, the streets, getting to know the people, what's important to them. There's a lot of things here. As far as the size of the department and managing the people, that's nothing. I think there was a little more challenging in Sandwich because I had 48 union firefighters who, could be difficult at times, but it was a good time. But, here it's just learning what's happening here and what Medfield's all about. I've heard this great thing about the holiday stroll, which I'm kind of looking forward to. In Halifax, we had holidays in Halifax, so on a Saturday afternoon and a couple of weeks outside of Christmas, we used to put the candles out along the road, and all the businesses would open up, and it was a pretty good time, and we'd have fireworks, so that's pretty cool. But I'm looking forward to the holiday stroll and just getting a little deeper. And my biggest thing that I'm struggling with right now is probably the commute, because I still live in Sandwich. My house has been on the market for 75 days, and real estate in the Cape isn't moving as fast as real estate in Medfield. So it's quite a bit slower, and there is a lot of homes for sale down there. So I'm just struggling driving up here, and like tonight I'm staying overnight, and I'll stay overnight another night. So it's just trying to, make sure that you guys are getting what you deserve from the fire chief. It's really, I think I need to be close and be part of the community. So
Did you find a home yet?
My wife has found many homes, but we can't do anything until ours is under agreement. And we're in a price range on the Cape that's moving dreadfully slow. So it's just a matter of getting the right buyer, and then as soon as we do, we'll jump on something as close to here as we can. You know, it's funny, is that guy drove up at 5:30 this morning, and then she drove up a little after 10, and so my wife's over in Stoughton taking care of her mom and dad. So that's important too, is making sure that, you know, she's contributing to the family over there and trying to help them out, so.
I have a question about the defibrillators.
Yep.
In all these buildings here now. How much training do you need, or will you try to participate in the training of using those defibrillators?
Well, we try to get people CPR trained as much as possible. And sometimes, if you just open up the case, it'll actually tell you what you need to do. It's very, very user-friendly, and it'll actually tell you what you need to do. And I think right now, the American Heart Association is trying to simplify CPR as much as possible now. Before you had, 30 compressions, 2 breaths, and now they're just happy if you just start doing compressions on somebody if you don't want to do anything else. Because at least by compressing the chest 2 inches, it will, you'll compress the lungs, expand your lungs, and hopefully get some kind of breaths in and make some kind of difference. Trying to become a heart-safe community, you have to have people who are willing to take the classes. You have to have public buildings that have AEDs in them. Right now, to buy an AED could cost you anywhere from $1,200 to $1,700 with the case on the wall, and then some people are a little concerned that there might be a liability that if someone were to drop inside that they're not gonna be used. So, the biggest thing right now that's a big advantage to 25 years ago is how many people have cell phones now. So if somebody sees somebody, whether they sit on the ground or they lay down, they're gonna make a phone call, and for every person that's out there on the side of the road, we're gonna get 15 phone calls that somebody's not feeling well. So, but it is rather important. At least if you happen to ever go online and you look at how to operate an AED, it's very, very simple. As soon as you open it up, it talks to you and tells you what you have to do. So it's pretty simple.
Do we have one here?
We should.
Yes, we do.
We should. Should be around the corner.
As you walk in on the left.
Yeah.
We've had it since the FAF Center days.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about.
I never knew where it was.
One in St. Edwards, too.
Around here.
That's what I always think.
Dorothy is going to use that.
I have a question to follow up on that. Do you know how many defibrillators there are in Medfield, and who determines, is it the cost that determines how many a town has, or does the fire chief or somebody decide we need 6 per population? Or?
No, it's up to the community. If I know in about 2 years ago in Sandwich, we ended up doing a town purchase where the town made a decision that they wanted an AED in every town-owned building. So I ended up having to make the purchase, and I ended up purchasing 20 AEDs for the community, and we went out and placed them all throughout the town. And then we had the whole argument is that, okay, in 2 years when all the pads go bad, because they have an expiration date on everything that's medical related, who's going to pay, who's going to be responsible for changing the pads? And we ended up coming up that I'll take that responsibility. So I had a member of my department that would go out and check all the boxes and check everything. So, right now I know that there's an initiative. There's one youngster in town that's going for his Boy Scout, Eagle Scout. So that's one of his projects. He's trying to get money to raise for an AED, and I think he's looking at maybe putting it in the library. We had wanted it in the town hall. There were just some issues there, and the library, he actually wanted to put it at one of the ball fields. And I said, hey, look, that's a great idea to have it at the ball field, but security-wise, it's going to be outside. They're susceptible to extreme heat, extreme cold. So he ended up making an alternate and putting it in the library, so.
And what does he need to raise money?
He needs to raise money, yeah.
How much is that for AED?
Well, it would be the cost of the AED, so, I think he's probably looking for as much as he can get. And if the more money he gets, I think he's going to expand it and add more, so. I'd have to get that information for you. I could send it over to Roberta, and then
Right, but ballpark, you just said between 17.
between $1,200 and $1,700 a piece.
So he'll be looking for donations at the
Yeah.
library at a certain time?
Well, he'd be looking for donations from people like yourselves.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
Yeah. the boy doing his,
Well, I wouldn't give it to the library, I would give the contact information to Roberta, and then I would go through, I'd go directly to the Eagle Scout candidate.
Yeah. Find that information out.
I think he should come Wednesday night, look at that.
Who, Chief Carrico? Yeah, if you're sleeping over Wednesday night, you can have supper here.
Oh, I'm gonna be here Wednesday night. I have interviews from 7 to 7:30.
Oh, that's okay, we're done by 7.
You done? Yeah. Well, 5 o'clock to 7. 5 o'clock to 7. Starts at 1700. I get military time, 1700.
So, where did you start as a fireman?
I started, well, it's kind of funny, I'm a second-generation firefighter. My father was a Brockton fireman, and then back in 1978, he had a heart attack on the job. He was fighting a fire at D.W. Fields Park, and they ended up taking him to the hospital on the top of the engine. So he went to Cardinal Cushing, ended up retiring due to those injuries that he sustained. I've always wanted to be a firefighter, and I ended up taking the civil service exam back in 88. And I got 98 on the civil service exam, but I was 86th on the list for the city of Brockton. So at that time, they weren't hiring, it was Proposition 2.5, they were actually cutting positions. Ended up going into the construction field, became a senior construction engineer for the Central Artery project. And my disclaimer is I was on all the projects that didn't fail, all right? So the one there with the tunnel, I was not involved in the tunnel project, okay? And a friend of mine who is retiring right now, I think is on the 28th is his retirement party. He called me up and he said, "Hey Bill, it's Monday. Hey, Duxbury firefighter exam, the last day to apply is on Friday." So I ended up scrambling, ran right to Duxbury, got the application, submitted it, and I was selected. I was one of the only people that was selected that wasn't a call firefighter. I had my EMT, and I started there in September 13th, 1999 as a firefighter EMT, and we didn't have paramedics back then. We had an ALS Intercept, and very similar to what you have here is the ALS Intercept said, "Hey, look, we're going to go away. We're not going to provide the ALS Intercept anymore." So it's the same scenario that we have in town here. So we ended up having to go and hire paramedics and, going down that road. And about 6 years after I got the job, the deputy chief's exam came up, said I had a 33% chance of getting the deputy's position because of my competition, and got the job. And a couple of years later, I said, you know what, I want to be a fire chief, and here I am. Yeah.
Now, how many bad fires have you seen or had?
Now, it all depends on what your perspective is. I've been to a fire where 12 dogs died. I'm an animal lover. I've been to a 5-alarm fire that lasted 29 hours. I've been to a hazardous materials incident which involved radioactive material, weapons of mass destruction, and high explosives, but it all ended up being hoaxes. That was another 10-hour event. So I guess it's all dependent on what you think is bad. I think some of the worst things that I've been to was this a girl that I knew in Halifax, beautiful model, hit a tree at 114, split her car in half, and she did not survive. I didn't even recognize her when I was trying to intubate her. I was in the back of the ambulance, and we pulled her out of the car was on fire. That one stuck in my mind. So I think as far as bad fires, I think it's more of the little things that can kind of sneak up on you, things like that. People you know, children, a mother coming out with a lifeless kid, handing it to you. It's like, okay, it's all me. So you go to the ambulance. So, what, as far as bad, I guess it's your perspective. I think a 5-alarm fire in a recycling facility, it's a process, and it's just, the fires I'm not too worried about. I'd say the one thing with the dogs, I'm an animal lover, and the smell of animals, you remember that for a long time. So it's all your perspective, I guess. Everybody's different things that bother them.
actually, I got bleached.
Well, this person had a illegal kennel in his basement. He was bordering animals illegally. He did not have a permit from the town. He was unlicensed. We didn't know that it was full of dogs when the fire started in that area. So, sorry for being a downer.
You're married now. How many children do you have?
I've been married 28 wonderful years. She is the anchor. She's everything I'm not. She's nice. She likes people. And you guys are so laughing. You got it. So, no, she's fantastic. She's a Stoughton girl. Don't hold that against her. I got a daughter, Emma, who she's 18. She's going into nursing school in September. My son is 22. He is a senior at UMass Dartmouth, political science. He tells me that he's going to go to school until I have to call him doctor. And he doesn't care what the degree is, he just wants me to call him doctor. So who knows where he's going to end up. I think last night a friend of his came over and he was talking Suffolk law. My kid, he's got a 144 IQ, and he's a smart kid, photographic memory, so he'll probably do well being he argues everything with me, so he'll be perfect at being a lawyer.
You'll like me.
You guys are. You are. I got a. You want to keep getting into my life? I got a Puerto Rican rescue dog named Bruin. I got him about 2 years ago. It's funny. He flew up from Puerto Rico. He wasn't part of the storm or anything. It's just I happened to find a dog that we liked, and they flew him up from Puerto Rico on the 28th of December 2 years ago. So he goes from like 98-degree weather up here, and I think the day that he came up, it was all at 20 degrees and raining sideways on the Cape. So I bring him out to take him for a walk, and he had had enough of New England. He's out there in the yard, and he's kind of alternating his feet on the ground, and he doesn't like water at all, which is crazy. But he's just this crazy-looking crossbreed animal that doesn't make any sense. Huh?
Any special mix?
Well, he's called a Sato, and a Sato means island dog. So what they have is, apparently they let all their dogs, some dogs have just gotten let free, and they breed, and what they did was they're trying to rescue these dogs and trying to give them a better home. So they brought a group of these dogs up to New England, and we got one. And I wish I had gotten two at the time, but I had a yellow lab, and she was on the end of her life. And this little crazy dog now runs the house. So.
My daughter's a dog rescuer.
Oh, really?
She lives in Quincy, but she gets them, they bring them up from, I don't know where, in the United States, They bring
Yep.
them up in a van, and they have names of people, and she has to deliver 2 each week, and there's around 3 or 4 girls who do it.
Oh, wow.
She don't get paid or anything, and she goes all over the place. One day she walked into some place with this man, and it was kind of scary. She was interviewing him, or you'd think they were interviewing for a child. But anyway, she said it was very scary. She had to make her exit from the house. She said he had padlocks at 3 doors down the hall.
Ooh.
And she called him up and said, don't send anyone here. This isn't safe. No dog.
I'm going to interrupt, Dorothy. I apologize, because I know you have to get back to the station.
No, that's all right.
You're good? Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
But, I'm afraid our ice cream is melting.
Oh, my God, don't let the ice cream melt.
So,
That's a
I
tragedy.
want to thank you and welcome
That's
you.
a tragedy.
That would be bad.
Yeah.
Right.
So, any last questions? One of the things, if something comes up, if you have a question to me, you can call the fire station. They'll transfer the line up. If stop in, you can come and look at come and see the fire station. Obviously, it's your facility. The people that work there work for you. So, if you have a question of me, by all means, just get in touch with me.
Could we ever arrange a group to come in for a tour?
Absolutely.
Oh, perfect.
Absolutely. We have an elevator for those who are a little mobility challenged, so we'll be able to get you around, and it'll be good.
One more question. I have 2 fire things for fires. They've been here like 10 and 12 years old.
Fire extinguishers?
Yeah, fire.
Fire extinguishers do have an age limit. After so many years, they have to be maintained. So what I would do is, you can bring them to me and I'll take care of them. Once they're discharged, they become metal waste. So,
I mean, they're sitting there, thank God I have them, but I wouldn't even know how to open it.
okay. It's pretty easy.
Everything's easy, but when you're by yourself in a little handicap, it's not that easy. I could open it.
Yeah, those little tabs, sometimes those tabs are rather difficult to pop. All right, no other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're watching Medfield TV, community shows.